Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Nuggets News. Well, it's been about 6 months since we last did a big picture cycle update on the Bitcoin halving, altcoins, what's going on in the global macro world. There's a lot of stuff happening in terms of regulation at the moment and pushes for Bitcoin ETFs. So I'm going to try and tie that all together for you today. And 6 months ago, Bitcoin was trading at $17,000 and ETH around that $1,000 mark, and we were very confident in the video we did and in our research pieces we'd been doing for members that the bottom was in or very close. A bit of housekeeping. I do want to let you all know that our new research platform is now live, and I'll give you a bit of a walk through that at the end for those of you that hang around till the end, and you can sign up via the website, create login details, and we're re-offering that lifetime membership as a bit of a special. We have been running the Facebook group for over a year now. Hundreds of you have joined that, so thank you. But we've expanded the research team to over a dozen researchers now, and we're really looking forward to doing more as we get into this next bull market and the cycle heats up. All right, so all the talk lately has been about these Bitcoin ETFs. Fidelity, a number of the big players have all finally come on board, and it's been nearly 10 years since the Winklevoss twins pushed for that first Bitcoin ETF. They're continually rejected, and the reasons for the pushback are getting fewer and fewer. And these big boys like BlackRock, Fidelity, and so on, they know how to address these, and we've already seen them refile very quickly and make those subtle adjustments that are necessary to get this across the line. So I think everyone knows that this is now on the horizon, whether it's a month away or a year away. It's definitely coming, and those sort of big news events tend to get front run, and we're going to look at those metrics as well. Cathie Wood reportedly first in line, but I really think BlackRock is the power player here because they've got such sway in terms of connections to politicians and that kind of thing. So is BlackRock's ETF going to be the best thing to happen? Well, as long as we have a spot ETF that holds real Bitcoin, it can all be confirmed on chain that they're holding the amount in terms of the investment they've got, and that's very different to these futures products that allow for speculation. Over the years, people have said, well, that's one of the reasons why gold and silver price has been capped so much, because all this trillions in trading volume happens on futures markets. So we prefer spot products that hold the real thing. Now, just today we've come out and we've heard from Larry Fink, who was opposed to Bitcoin all those years ago. They're finally on side now that they can build a product. They see that profitability that's going to come from having this ETF. And remember, we've already got futures ETFs, leveraged ETFs, inverse ETFs. So it's crazy that we don't really have the last piece of the puzzle, which is a real Bitcoin spot ETF. And so when BlackRock's CEO puts his power behind it, this is the real deal. And he's been doing the rounds lately talking about how it's digital gold and it's an international asset, alternate currency, blah, blah, blah. So these, times have really changed from the opposition that we used to cop from these types of faces. Now, the other thing that's been happening in the background, Gary Gensler and the SEC suing Coinbase for breaking these security rules, and alts have been continuing to underperform. The SEC named 60 odd cryptos that are seen as securities. The other day we had these rumors that Gary Gensler was going to resign. That didn't turn out to be true, but I think either way, there's kind of a new chapter coming in terms of friendlier regulation. This big case that's going to go down with Coinbase. I think we're going to get some sort of resolution which ultimately will be good for alts. And just remember that even if the US does crack down on them, how many countries does Binance operate in? 100 others. So there's 99 other countries that still have friendlier regulation towards alts. There's articles going around in Australia at the moment that half of Aussies surveyed plan to invest in crypto in the future. So there's plenty of people out there, billions across the planet in different countries. Even if the US continues its crackdown. Now, BlackRock have named Coinbase as their custodian. Now, you think about, well, why would they do that if they think Coinbase is in the firing line, going to get in trouble and going to lose? They just wouldn't. And they've got such political sway that they can almost turn it, I think, in Coinbase's favor, as well as naming Coinbase as their surveillance sharing agreement, so to monitor what's happening as well. So this is all giving Coinbase that positive tailwind, and after being beat up stock-wise, going from over 400 in the bull market What are we down to $30 there? Coinbase is starting to turn around. A lot of these mining stocks as well, Bitcoin mining stocks, are starting to turn around after this capitulation and accumulation phase. They're kind of finally breaking out, and people look for those to say, well, that's going to give me some beta. That's going to outperform. If Bitcoin goes up, these Bitcoin mining stocks are going to outperform. The other thing to mention here is the close tie between BlackRock, Coinbase, and USDC Circle. So the amount of USDC in circulation here has nearly halved, and you've got to remember, a lot of people had the uncertainty around regulation and what stablecoins were going to get in trouble and which ones weren't. But also, we've had interest rates go up, so a lot of people now could only get 4% on their USDC. They might be able to get 5-6% or more in a savings account, on government bonds, on some of these other what they view as more secure products in the meantime, until they're ready to redeploy their capital and get exposure to crypto when they think the next bull market is about to start. And this is another great metric to watch. When we see this take off, people are minting stable coins and looking to then deploy into Bitcoin, ETH, and as the cycle follows, we tend to get that money go into alts eventually as well, which we'll talk about when we look at the charts. But just remember that BlackRock and Circle have this close relationship where they move their banking services to BlackRock as well. So they're all kind of in bed together now, which is important to remember. Some of these products, other listed products like Grayscale, GBTC, were really trading at a discount compared to the actual Bitcoin price and the amount of Bitcoin they hold. And again, they've really had a couple of big green weeks now. What's that? $13 to over $20, starting to catch up and trade at less of a discount. The same with their ETH product as well. Another thing we've seen is some of these big players come in and create exchanges. So this EDX exchange, it's backed by the big boys. Again, regulatory certainty for those older players and that established money. This is a lot safer, in their opinion, than some of these other fringe exchanges, or even FTX going under and that type of thing. This is viewed as safer, and they're starting to move who they're partnering with for their custody and so on. And interestingly, they have listed a lot of these proof of work coins. Now, this is something we've spoken about in the past, and I actually did a research piece on last year for members, how these proof of work coins are viewed as very safe from a regulatory point of view. They've been around for a long time. That staking and the rewards, there's none of that to worry about. And so we saw, Litecoin have a huge boost, and Bitcoin Cash as well. Love them or hate them, some of these ones have been around for a long time, and these are the next types of products we'll see. Maybe a proof of work ETF, and then a top 10 coins ETF, and some of those basket and index type products, as investors want exposure to different themes as well. Now, going overseas, one thing we've talked about in recent videos and for a long time now is this move from the West having the power to the East. And so when Bank of Russia sets up these entities for crypto mining and cross-border settlement, we've heard about trade being settled in Bitcoin. So the more the US is cracking down, it opens the door for these other countries and power players to capture market share and say, hey, we're happy with crypto here. They're probably still going to want to be on top of it, but they see it as an opportunity if the US is going to continue to crack down. So Russian bank launching crypto payments and cross-border solutions. We've seen Deutsche Bank in Germany, Germany's largest bank, go for that custodial license. And even in China and Hong Kong, the narrative still being alive and well. So that's something that I think we're going to continue to see. So what's going on chain at the moment? So Bitcoin on exchanges has reached multi-year lows, and if you think about the Bitcoin spot ETF, it's going to have to hold real Bitcoin. They're going to have to buy it from somewhere, and people that have been here for a long time and now they've just gone through another bear market, I don't think that they're going to sell easily. So maybe we have another scare, another black swan, and that's an attempt to really shake hodlers to try and accumulate the Bitcoin for the ETF. And we know that they can control the news, and the narrative will seem bad at the time if we get that. But maybe that they've been busy accumulating already during the accumulation period, and that's why they're now starting to push this news cycle and coming out on the mainstream TV and saying, hey, Bitcoin's this bullish asset, digital gold. that tends to be what we've seen in the past. Once they're happy, they start to talk bullish about it and change their tune. In terms of the Fed and what's going on, we haven't heard so much about this in the headlines just recently, but the banking bailouts continue to reach new weekly highs in terms of these underhand deals to stabilize the smaller banks and these emergency loans that are going on. We see here, $100 billion plus again in the past week. So don't forget that this is the current that's happening under the table as well. We spoke about the money printers coming back on, even if they're not going to necessarily call it money printing. This is a chart of US CPI month over month. We got up to 7% here as its top just in February this year, and it started to come off. Now, important to put this in relative terms. So if your basket of goods at the supermarket was $100 and it's gone up 7% year on year with what they're reporting, just because it's coming down doesn't mean prices are going to come down. It still means prices are going up, but just to a smaller percentage. So even if CPI comes back down to 2%, it's still gone from $100 to $107 to $109 that following year. So a lot of people are struggling, and it doesn't mean that prices are coming down. It means they just continue to go up, but at a lesser pace. If we have a look at the US bond market, so that peaked around October, and we spoke about the peak in the fear of inflation rather than the number itself, particularly as reported by CPI, which didn't peak until February with the numbers that the government statistics report publicly. Okay, so a few months later. If we actually have a look at this website, True Inflation, who calculate this themselves from millions of data points, a more truer and faster methodology to get real-time numbers, I guess, this has really come off. So they had it peaking back in, say, July last year, and it's already right back down to 2%. So if we believe this to be true, that inflation is higher than the government actually said at the time, but it's come right back down, then if this rolls over, and even if they're reporting 7% when maybe it was, say, 11, 12%, this can roll over and get all the way back down to that zero mark over the next 6 to 12 months, as we've seen here. And that's kind of that narrative that I was laying out, that I think because they've jacked rates up so hard, so fast at a record pace, and consumers are getting crushed, we can really see that inflation doesn't mean things are getting cheaper, but it comes back down. And that, I guess, allows investors to say, hey, I'm not getting that higher amount of return on my savings account, on those bonds or whatnot, and it starts to sway them to speculate again in more speculative assets, which obviously a big tailwind for stocks, which have been doing well, and a huge tailwind for Bitcoin, particularly if the money printers come back on, the US goes into recession, other countries follow. It gives them that excuse to say, hey, we need to do more rescuing now and stimulus. All right, so this is that Bitcoin cyclical chart with the halvings marked and our cycles marked, where we tend to front run that halving in every cycle. So as I mentioned last time, where we're here, we'll just take that off logarithmic back to regular. So last time we were trading at around $17,000 when I did that video and saying, hey, we're getting very close to this time where we already expect prices to start to push up. So if we continue to zoom in shorter term, it's what happens next now. This is, again, Bitcoin versus Bitcoin dominance. So as we get into this cycle and after we peak, we tend to see Bitcoin have this capitulation in dominance, and then as alts are really taking off as we head towards that complete euphoria and retail money speculation, and then Bitcoin starts to gain in dominance again. So we've had a capitulation in that Bitcoin dominance as we top in the cycle, and since then we've kind of been chopping sideways, and finally Bitcoin's starting to gain in terms of its percentage dominance there. So I guess the question now is, does Bitcoin have one more push up towards say $40,000? And then start to chop around a bit, because we normally chop into the halving and then really get going after that halving for that next bull market cycle. So this is where we're at the moment. So let's just zoom in shorter term, and that key level to get over is where we've tried a couple of times now, around that 31, 32 mark. So do we bull flag here for a couple of more weeks and then finally have a push through and get overextended on the Bollinger Bands and overbought on the RSI and that type of thing, and then chop between 30 and 40, and that gives alts a chance to catch up? Or are we going to chop around under this level if we can't break through it now? But I do think, my gut feeling says that with all this ETF news, we had that second chance to buy at around 25, 24 there after a lot of people missed out under 20,000. And I think there's still a lot of people that are even talking about, 12,000, one more capitulation. So when there's still plenty of people that haven't fully deployed their capital and the news has become fundamentally stronger since back here, I think we can easily, in that scenario where we do have a crack at that 40,000, people going, geez, with that ETF news, we're sitting at 30, but I was still waiting for one more dip. And that, I guess that sentiment is kind of the way that I'm viewing it at the moment. If we look at total market cap of all cryptos, again, they have cycles that really have been followed perfectly. And 6 months ago, when we were here, I was talking about, hey, the total crypto market just looks like money's ready to come in. We're ready for this push up. And after we have the breakdown, we get to have a bit of a test, and then it's kind of off to the races for the majority of the cycle. A little retest and then off. And we've sort of had that now as well, a bit of a retest, chopping around, and it feels like everything's ready to take off. Total 2 just excludes Bitcoin. So this is alts as well. Again, broken that downtrend, come back and revisited, and I think we're getting ready in that territory to push off. ETH tends to lead. I think alts have really bled a lot more than ETH this time around as well. So we even could see this scenario where Bitcoin goes and ETH goes as well, while alts are underperforming both. This can be a bit of a head and shoulders. One thing I commented on was how when we bottomed below 1,000 for ETH, I spoke about how it felt like more people were watching the ETH chart or trading the ETH chart, and it was behaving a lot easier to follow. And once again, we've seen on this recent retrace buying come in. So as long as we hold this level on the ETH Bitcoin ratio here in this golden zone, we've seen buyers come in both times, oversold on the weekly chart. If we just have a look at the ETH USD chart, similar thing with that real key level now, where if we break through, maybe we come back and revisit it, and then it's kind of off to the races, and we have another $1,000 push or so higher from where we are now. So once we get that rotation into Bitcoin, there's a lot of money to be made. The same with ETH. That gets more people excited, and that's when people start to want to speculate on their alts. There's going to be new alts every cycle, but at the same time, I've mentioned how things like Litecoin and that might come back into favor for those mature investors, and they might be the ones that get the financial products, but we're always going to have these new narratives and themes as well. This is the chart of others, so excluding Bitcoin, ETH, and I believe the stable coins. Again, so a good measure of where alts are. We're bouncing off this trend line. Like I said before, maybe that one more visit where alts underperform and then we start to rally again. That's how I'm viewing things. In terms of bullish narratives, as I mentioned before, really bullish on layer 2s, real world assets, interchain operability. And these are the sort of things that we're covering in our research. So at the start of the video, I mentioned our alpha research team. We're now up to 12 researchers. We're covering this sort of stuff. The research area, we've got guys dedicated to NFTs, which NFT projects we like and which we don't. We've got Kyle on board dedicated to TA, and he's doing a lot of TA on our preferred altcoins as well. Airdrops, this is something that a lot of you have made tens of thousands of dollars on, so detailed walkthroughs on what airdrops we think are coming up and how to farm them to get the most. We're still going to run that Facebook community, which you can join. You'll get access to that when you sign up. Educational materials, book one-on-ones, as well as the feed of all the content as it comes in order, guys. So as I mentioned at the start, we're running that lifetime special for those of you that do want to take the plunge and re-sign up for our premium research provided by all the team. Other than that, guys, very exciting times with the bear market behind us and a lot of bullish tailwinds. Feel like they're coming together. So thanks for tuning in. Smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, share these videos around, and I'll talk to you again soon. Cheers.